Welcome to City Skylines, the Dev Diaries. These videos take a closer look at the official Dev Diaries that can be found at the Paradox Interactive Forum, and I'll include a link to them in the video description. In this episode, we'll be looking at the map editor. And in my opinion, this is the jewel in Skylines' crown. When you first start creating a new map, the first thing you'll see is the map tile grid, which covers the entire buildable area. The center tile defaults to being the starting tile, but you can choose any of the 25 tiles and you can change the starting tile at any point during the map creation process. Now, there have been a lot of questions about the size of the maps and exactly how much buildable area we will have, so let's cover that now. You start with a single tile, which is 2 kilometers by 2 kilometers, and the developers have optimized the game for a 36 kilometer square area, which is 9 map tiles, and you'll be able to unlock up to 9 map tiles in any direction or pattern of your choosing. Now, this is usually the point where we all get disappointed and think, why the hell did I bother getting a good gaming rig when they restrict the map sizes like this? However, the developers have made it very clear that modders will be able to unlock the entire 5x5 grid. Now, okay, personally, I would have liked an in-game option where I could select the maximum number of unlockable tiles. But hey, as long as we get to play on the biggest map our PCs can handle, then I'm happy. Now, one useful feature of the map editor is the checklist. The checklist is split into 2 categories: requirements and recommended features. Requirements are things that every map must have in order to be playable, like outside connections. Recommended features are optional, things like natural resources. And the checklist gives you an easy way to keep track of your progress and make sure that you've covered all the bases. As you add things to the map, the checklist will automatically tick the boxes for tasks that have been completed. The boundaries of the buildable area can act as a useful guide when you're terraforming. The developers described the area outside the buildable area as the eye candy area, where you can go wild, vast oceans, mountain ranges, whatever you like. Just remember, you'll need at least 1 outside highway connection. Inside the buildable area, you can still go wild, but the best maps will be a good balance of interesting and challenging terrain without limiting the buildable area too much. So how exactly do we go about creating these masterpieces of geoengineering? The terrain editor has a pretty comprehensive range of tools to allow you to manipulate the terrain pretty much any way you want. There are several editing modes: raising and lowering, flattening, smoothing, and creating slopes. And for each of these modes, there are several different brushes, starting from the basic soft and round brushes up to the harder edge brushes and custom shaped brushes, which are apparently designed to create more natural looking formations like rivers and lakes, for example. Oh yeah, and the brush size and strength can also be changed. Sounding good so far? Yep, I think so too. But what about if you don't want to fiddle about recreating Manhattan by hand? Well, the map editor also allows the importing of height maps. Now, the game prefers a 16-bit grayscale PNG file, which should, they say, give pretty accurate terrain formations. Just pop your files into the correct folder and you'll be able to access them within the editor. Here's an example of a map that was imported and then modified using the in-game tools to improve the playability. And I can just imagine a whole bunch of avid map makers who can't wait to get their hands on this. And I'm going to predict right now that we'll have maps of major cities and well-known landscapes available for download in a matter of days after the launch. I'm also going to predict that several of you out there are going to need a cold shower after this next bit, because now we're going to look at water. And the way that water dynamics has been implemented in City Skylines looks nothing short of total frickin' sweet balls. Let's start with the basics. For a map to be playable, there needs to be water somewhere in the buildable area. And specifically, there must be water in the starting tile. Otherwise, your little Skyliners won't have anything to drink or anywhere to dump their sewage. Water is present in two ways. Fresh flowing water that's created by placing water sources on the map, and seawater that's automatically present in areas where the terrain level is below the sea level and there's access to the border of the map. And by the way, the sea level is not fixed. You can set the sea level to whatever you like in order to fit the maps that you create or import. So for example, on this imported map, set the sea level to 45 meters and you get this. But the best thing for me are the water spawners. You want to create a lake, dig one out, place a water spawner in a suitable location, set the height of the spawner to define the level of the lake, then sit back and watch the water flow. The water will continue to spawn as long as it reaches the height set for the spawner. Then the spawning and also draining of water will automatically balance so that the lake won't flood unintentionally. Spawners also act as drains, so you could have water spawning in one lake, flowing down a river into a second lake where the water drains away. The best way to handle rivers is to dig a riverbed to the edge of the map and then place a water spawner. The water will flow along the riverbed, and if the spawner's capacity is large enough and the height is high enough, it will keep flowing until it reaches the other side of the map or the sea level. I told you, frickin' sweet balls! The map editor also has a set of what the developers call info views, which help you with some of the most important aspects of the map, like water flow directions and the placement of natural resources, as well as the terrain height differences. For example, the flow info view will help you make sure that the water spawners have high enough capacity to produce strong currents, and that the river flow works properly when it comes into contact with other water features like the sea and lakes. The terrain height info view mode will help identify any unwanted irregularities in the map, allowing you to spot and remove any annoying little bumps that might interfere with city building. And the natural resources info view shows you where the resources are located: green for trees, black for oil, blue for ore, and yellow for fertile land. In order to be playable, a map must have at least one incoming and one outgoing connection for each of the different types of transport. And the starting tile has to have at least a highway connection, since the player only has access to road building at the beginning of the game. This is where the checklist comes in very handy, keeping track of exactly how many connections you have at any given moment. One thing that's worth pointing out: once you're actually playing on the map, the player can only edit the roads in the map areas that they've unlocked. They can't edit roads or any other connections, such as train tracks, that are outside the city's boundaries or in the non-buildable zone. And therefore it's up to the map maker to make sure the player will have all the connections that a city will need and that they're in accessible positions. The developers, Colossal Order, view natural resources as an important strategic element in the game, and the map maker can play some interesting games depending on the size and placement of resources. 3 of the 4 natural resources can be painted on the ground and will alter the ground texture depending on the specific resource type. Forests, for example, have several different trees to choose from depending on the map theme. And the developers have teased us by promising to tell us more about climate themes in a future dev diary. But we do know for sure that there will be a Nordic theme and a desert theme. And each theme will have unique lighting conditions and terrain textures, as well as a unique selection of trees. The Nordic theme, for example, offers pine trees and conifers for your forests, and the lighting attempts to simulate that found in the Northern Hemisphere, as well as having terrain textures with rather toned down colours. Now, once your map is complete, you can create a preview image with the snapshot tool, give the map a name, and then check the Publish Map checkbox. Then your map will automatically appear in the list of playable maps when you start a new game. And that's it for the map editor. Are you starting to believe the hype yet? I am. I'd like to thank Henke for putting together the original Dev Diary. I'd like to thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this vid, hit the like button, or better still, leave me a comment. And I'll see you for episode 7, where we'll be looking at simulation.